The fluorescent lights of Outpost Zeta 12 hummed incessantly, a grating reminder of the station's aging infrastructure. Lyra hunched over her workstation in a cramped maintenance bay, her slender fingers deftly manipulating the delicate circuitry of a malfunctioning power converter. At just 19, she was the youngest technician on the station, though few knew her true age. Even fewer knew her true nature. Lyra's skin shimmered with an iridescent sheen, catching the harsh light as she worked. Her eyes, slightly too large for her face, were a striking amber, a stark contrast to her shock of deep blue hair. These features marked her as neither fully human nor fully Altarian, but a hybrid of both species. In a galaxy where purity of bloodline was prized above all else, Lyra was an aberration, a living reminder of a forbidden union. As she soldered the final connection, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Hey, freak. Chief wants that converter fixed 10 minutes ago. Stop daydreaming and get it done." Lyra flinched at the insult, but didn't respond. She was used to the taunts, the sideways glances, the not-so-subtle way people avoided touching her. On a station of 10,000 souls, she was utterly alone. With a sigh, she closed up the converter's casing and hefted it onto her shoulder. The device was nearly as big as she was, but years of hard labor had made her stronger than she looked. As she made her way through the winding corridors of Zeta 12, she kept her eyes down, avoiding eye contact with the other residents. "Watch it, half-breed," the burly human technician growled as he shouldered past her, nearly knocking her off balance. Lyra gritted her teeth and pressed on. The control room was a hive of activity when she arrived. Screens flickered with data streams, and the air was thick with the chatter of technicians and the beeping of various systems. Chief Engineer Thorne, a grizzled veteran with more cybernetic parts than original ones, glowered as Lyra approached. "Took you long enough," he grunted, snatching the converter from her grasp. "Maybe if you were a pure blood, you'd work faster." Lyra felt her cheeks burn with shame and anger. "I fixed it in half the time it would take anyone else," she muttered. Thorne's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. "What was that?" "Nothing, sir," Lyra said quickly, averting her gaze. The chief engineer snorted and turned away, already barking orders at another technician. Lyra slipped out of the control room, eager to retreat to the solitude of her tiny quarters. As she walked, her mind drifted to the circumstances of her birth. Her mother, Dr. Elena Chen, had been a brilliant xenobiologist on a mission to study the reclusive Altarians. Her father, Zarin, was an Altarian scholar fascinated by human culture. Their love had been genuine, their union a bridge between two worlds. But the galaxy wasn't ready for such a union. When Lyra was born, both human and Altarian authorities had been outraged. Her parents were separated, their careers ruined. Lyra was shuffled from one foster home to another until she ended up on Zeta 12, a forgotten outpost on the fringes of human space. Lost in thought, Lyra didn't notice the group of young engineers rounding the corner until it was too late. She collided with one of them, a stocky human named Brent who had made it his personal mission to make her life miserable. Well, Brent sneered, shoving her back. "If it isn't the station mascot. What's wrong, freak? Antenna not picking up our brainwaves." His friends laughed, forming a circle around her. Lyra's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "Leave me alone, Brent. I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job?" Brent's face twisted with disgust. "Your job is to not exist. You're an abomination. You know that. You shouldn't even be alive." Something snapped inside Lyra. Years of pent-up frustration and anger boiled to the surface. "I have every right to be here," she hissed, her amber eyes flashing. "I work harder than any of you. I'm smarter than all of you combined, and one day I'll prove it." For a moment, silence fell over the group. Then Brent laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Listen to it, boys. The little freak thinks she's people." He stepped closer, towering over her. "You'll never be one of us. You'll never belong anywhere. You're nothing but a mistake." Lyra felt something stir within her, a strange energy she'd never felt before. Her vision blurred, and for a split second, she swore she saw tendrils of light dancing around her fingers. But before she could process what was happening, Brent shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet. As she fell, her head struck the edge of a nearby console with a sickening crack. Pain exploded behind her eyes, and the world went dark. When Lyra regained consciousness, she was lying in the med bay, the sterile white ceiling swimming into focus above her. Dr. Nara, the station's chief medical officer, leaned over her with a concerned expression. "Easy there," Dr. Nara said softly. "You took quite a hit." Lyra tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced her back down. "What happened?" Dr. Nara's expression darkened. "According to Brent and his friends, you became agitated and accidentally injured yourself. But given the nature of your injuries and your unique physiology, I have my doubts about their story." Lyra closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. It was always the same. No matter what happened, she was always the one at fault, always the troublemaker, the misfit, the freak. "Lyra," Dr. Nara said gently, "I know it's not easy for you here, but you have to be careful. Your hybrid nature makes you different, and people fear what they don't understand." "I didn't ask to be born this way," Lyra whispered. Dr. Nara sighed. "I know, but you're stronger than you realize. One day, you'll find your place in this universe. Until then, keep your head down and stay out of trouble." As the doctor moved away to check on other patients, Lyra stared at her hands, remembering the strange energy she'd felt just before blacking out. Had it been real, or just a product of her stressed mind? Little did she know, deep within her unique genetic makeup, ancient powers were beginning to stir. Powers that would soon change not only her life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The journey of the outcast was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. Weeks passed, and life on Outpost Zeta 12 continued its monotonous rhythm. Lyra threw herself into her work, taking on extra shifts and the most challenging repair jobs. It was easier to focus on broken machines than to dwell on her broken life. One evening, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate night, Lyra found herself in a rarely used storage bay on the lowest level. She was searching for spare parts to repair an old communications array when something caught her eye, a faint, pulsing glow emanating from behind a stack of crates. Curiosity piqued, Lyra carefully made her way through the clutter. As she rounded the corner, her breath caught in her throat. There, half buried under years of accumulated junk, was a small, egg-shaped object. Its surface was covered in intricate, swirling patterns that pulsed with an ethereal light. "What are you?" Lyra whispered, reaching out to touch it. The moment her fingers made contact, a jolt of energy surged through her body. The strange object hummed to life, its glow intensifying. Lyra tried to pull away, but she found herself frozen in place, her mind flooded with a torrent of images and sensations. She saw vast, shimmering cities floating in space, creatures of pure energy dancing among the stars, and great battles that raged across entire galaxies. And through it all, she felt a presence, ancient, powerful, and somehow familiar. When the vision finally faded, Lyra found herself on her knees, gasping for breath. The egg-shaped artifact had gone dark, but she could still feel its energy pulsing in sync with her own heartbeat. That wasn't Altarian or human technology, she muttered, her mind racing. What is this thing? Before she could ponder further, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the storage bay in an eerie glow. "Attention all personnel," the station's AI announced, its usually calm voice tinged with urgency. "Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel report to designated safety zones immediately." Lyra's heart raced. In all her years on Zeta 12, there had never been an unknown contact, let alone a potential threat. Without thinking, she scooped up the artifact and tucked it into her tool belt. Something told her she couldn't leave it behind. As she raced through the corridors towards the control room, chaos erupted around her. People were running in all directions, some panicking, others trying to maintain order. When she finally reached her destination, she found Chief Engineer Thorne barking orders at a frantic crew. "I don't care how you do it. Just get those shields up to full power." He turned as Lyra entered, his cybernetic eye whirring. "You, half-breed, make yourself useful and get to auxiliary power control. We're going to need every scrap of energy we can muster." Lyra nodded and sprinted towards the auxiliary control room. As she ran, she felt the artifact at her hip grow warm. A tingling sensation spread through her body, and suddenly her senses seemed sharper, her reflexes quicker. She shook her head, trying to focus on the task at hand. The auxiliary control room was deserted when she arrived. Lyra's fingers flew over the console, rerouting power and optimizing systems with a speed and precision that surprised even her. As she worked, a holographic display flickered to life, showing the space around the station. What Lyra saw made her blood run cold. A fleet of ships unlike anything she'd ever seen before surrounded Zeta 12. They were massive, their hulls black as the void of space, with pulsing veins of red energy running along their surface. As she watched, they opened fire. The station shuddered under the assault. Lyra gripped the console to keep her balance, her mind racing. They were outgunned, outmatched, and had nowhere to run. Fear gripped her heart, but then the artifact at her hip began to vibrate intensely. Without thinking, Lyra pulled it out and held it in her palm. The moment she did, energy surged through her body once more. But this time, it didn't stop. It kept building, growing until she felt like she might burst. Instinctively, Lyra raised her free hand towards the holographic display. To her shock, tendrils of blue energy shot from her fingertips, weaving through the air and into the station's systems. Suddenly, she could feel every circuit, every power conduit, every scrap of technology on Zeta 12, as if it were an extension of her own body. With a thought, she redirected power, strengthened the shields, and optimized weapon systems beyond their normal capabilities. The station's defenses flared to life with newfound strength, pushing back against the alien assault. Lyra gasped, overwhelmed by the sensation. She could hear the surprised shouts of the crew in the main control room through the comm system, their amazement at the station's sudden surge in power. But the alien ships weren't backing down. They intensified their attack, concentrating their fire on one section of the station. Lyra felt the strain on the shields, the buckling of hull plating. She poured more energy into the defenses, drawing from reserves she didn't know she had. As she pushed herself to the limit, something else awakened within her. The human and Altarian parts of her DNA seemed to resonate with the artifact's energy, unlocking hidden potential. In her mind's eye, Lyra saw complex equations and alien technologies she somehow understood intuitively. With this new knowledge, she began to modify the station's systems on the fly. The shields adapted, becoming more resilient. The weapons recalibrated, finding weak points in the alien ship's armor. For a moment, it seemed like they might have a chance. But then the largest of the alien vessels moved into position. Its hull split open, revealing a weapon of terrifying proportions. As it charged up, Lyra realized with horror that a single blast from that cannon would obliterate Zeta 12 and everyone on it. Time seemed to slow down. Lyra looked at the artifact in her hand, then at the holographic display showing the impending doom. She thought of all the people on the station, even those who had treated her cruelly. They didn't deserve to die. Taking a deep breath, Lyra closed her eyes and embraced the power flowing through her. She didn't fully understand it, but she knew somehow that it was meant for her, that it was part of her heritage, her destiny. "I won't let them win," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "I won't let fear and hatred destroy everything. Not again." As the alien weapon reached full charge, Lyra opened her eyes. They glowed with an otherworldly light, and the air around her crackled with energy. With a cry that echoed through the station's comm system, she unleashed the full force of her newfound power. A wave of blue energy erupted from Zeta-12, engulfing the alien fleet. For a moment, everything went white. And then, the battle was over. The alien ships hung motionless in space, their menacing red energy veins now dark and lifeless. The massive weapon that had been poised to destroy Zeta-12 was nothing more than a floating hulk of metal. What did I do?" Lyra whispered, staring at her hands in disbelief. Before she could process what had happened, the door to the auxiliary control room burst open. Chief Engineer Thorne stormed in, his face a mix of confusion and anger. "What in the name of all the stars did you do, girl?" he demanded, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the room. The whole station just lit up like a supernova, and now those ships out there are dead in the water. "Explain yourself." Lyra opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Her eyes darted to the artifact still clutched tightly in her hand. Thorne followed her gaze, his organic eye widening as he noticed the strange object. "What is that? Where did you get it?" Before Lyra could answer, alarms blared once again. The station's eye spoke, its voice urgent. "Warning. Unknown energy signature detected. Multiple teleportation events in progress." Thorne cursed, activating his comlink. "All security teams, battle stations. We've got intruders." He turned back to Lyra, his expression hardening. "I don't know what you've done or what that thing is, but right now we've got bigger problems. Can you do whatever it is you did again?" Lyra looked at the artifact, then back at Thorne. For the first time in her life, she saw something other than disdain in the chief engineer's eyes. Was it respect? Fear? She couldn't tell. I think so," she said, surprised by the confidence in her own voice. Thorne nodded curtly. "Then come with me. We're going to need every advantage we can get." As they raced through the corridors towards the main control room, Lyra could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the station. Energy weapons discharge, and the clash of metal on metal rang out. The invaders had made it aboard. They burst into the control room to find it in chaos. Screens showed security footage from all over the station, each one depicting scenes of conflict. The alien intruders were tall, their bodies covered in sleek black armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, easily overwhelming Zeta-12's security forces. "They're heading for the central core," one of the technicians shouted. "If they reach it, they'll have control of the entire station." Thorne turned to Lyra, his expression grim. "Whatever you can do, kid, now's the time." Lyra nodded, closing her eyes and focusing on the energy within her. She could feel it pulsing, ready to be unleashed. But this time, she didn't let it explode outward. Instead, she directed it with purpose, imagining it flowing through the station's systems. The control room's lights flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. Then, with a low hum, the systems came back online. But something was different. The displays showed the station's layout, but now overlaid with pulsing blue lines of energy, the same color as the artifact's glow. "I've connected myself to the station's systems," Lyra explained, her voice resonating with a new authority. "I can see everything, control everything." Without waiting for a response, she got to work. Her fingers danced over the holographic interfaces, locking down sections of the station, routing power, and activating dormant defense systems. The alien intruders suddenly found themselves trapped, cut off from their objectives by impenetrable energy barriers. But the invaders were resourceful. They began to adapt, using strange devices to bypass Lyra's defenses. It became a battle of wits and technology, with Lyra pushing her newfound abilities to their limits as she fought to keep the aliens at bay. As she worked, fragments of knowledge flashed through her mind. She saw glimpses of the artifact's origins, of an ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy. She realized that the power flowing through her was more than just energy. It was the legacy of a long-lost civilization. The battle raged on, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. Lyra's control over the station was impressive, but the aliens' technology was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was a stalemate, and time was running out. Suddenly, a new alert blared through the control room. One of the technicians called out, panic in his voice. "They've breached the central core. They're attempting to override our systems." Lyra's heart raced. She knew that if the aliens gained control of the core, all would be lost. Without thinking, she made a decision that would change everything. "I'm going down there," she announced, already moving towards the door. Thorn grabbed her arm, his face a mask of disbelief. "Are you insane? Those things will tear you apart." Lyra met his gaze, her amber eyes glowing with determination. "I'm the only one who has a chance. Trust me." For a moment, Thorn hesitated. Then, to Lyra's surprise, he nodded. "Go. We'll try to buy you as much time as we can." As Lyra raced towards the central core, she felt the artifact's energy surging through her. Her body moved with newfound grace and speed, easily outpacing the station's security teams. When she encountered groups of the alien intruders, she instinctively channeled the energy, creating barriers that pushed them back or short-circuiting their weapons with a thought. Finally, she reached the entrance to the central core. The massive doors had been blown open, and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. Lyra took a deep breath, clutching the artifact tightly, and stepped inside. The scene that greeted her was one of controlled chaos. A group of aliens surrounded the core itself, their strange devices interfacing with the station's systems. At the center stood a figure different from the rest, taller, with armor that seemed to shift and move like liquid shadow. As Lyra entered, the alien leader turned, its featureless helmet regarding her with what she could only imagine was surprise. "So," a voice resonated in her mind, deep and ancient. "The Precursor's power has awakened in you, little hybrid." "How?" "Unexpected." Lyra stood her ground, the artifact pulsing in sync with her racing heart. "Who are you? What do you want with our station?" The alien leader tilted its head, and Lyra had the unsettling feeling it was amused. "We are the Void Collective, child. We seek what is ours by right, the legacy of those who came before. The power you now wield so clumsily." With a gesture, the leader sent its subordinates advancing toward Lyra. She raised her hands, ready to defend herself, but doubt crept into her mind. Could she really stand against these advanced beings? As the aliens closed in, time seemed to slow. Lyra felt the artifact grow warm in her hand, and suddenly she understood. The power wasn't just within the artifact. It was within her. It had always been a part of her, a legacy of both her human and Altarian heritage, awakened by the ancient technology. With newfound clarity, Lyra embraced her true nature. Energy exploded from her body, filling the core chamber with blinding light. The advancing aliens were thrown back, their weapons and armor shorting out. The leader stood its ground, raising a hand wreathed in dark energy. "Impressive, but futile. You cannot hope to control such power. Surrender, and we may yet spare this station and its inhabitants." Lyra met the alien's gaze, her voice steady and clear. "This station, these people, they may not have always been kind to me, but they're under my protection now. I won't let you harm them." With that declaration, Lyra unleashed the full extent of her power. The artifact in her hand shattered, its energy merging completely with her own. The air crackled with electricity as two ancient forces clashed, the legacy of the Precursors against the dark energy of the Void Collective. As the battle reached its climax, Lyra realized that this confrontation was about more than just Zeta-12. It was a turning point in a cosmic conflict that had been raging for eons. And she, a once despised hybrid, now stood at the center of it all. The fate of not just the station, but perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance as Lyra faced off against the leader of the Void Collective. The true test of her newfound powers and her determination was about to begin. The central core chamber of Zeta-12 became a maelstrom of energy as Lyra and the leader of the Void Collective clashed. Tendrils of blue light intertwined with writhing shadows, creating a dazzling yet terrifying spectacle. The very fabric of space seemed to warp around them, reality bending under the strain of their battle. Lyra felt the power coursing through her veins, raw and untamed. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. She instinctively shaped the energy, forming shields to deflect the dark attacks of her opponent and launching her own salvos of brilliant light. The Void Collective leader was relentless, its attacks growing more ferocious with each passing moment. "You cannot hope to master that power, child," its voice resonated in Lyra's mind. "It will consume you, just as it did the precursors." But even as doubt tried to creep into her thoughts, Lyra felt something else, a presence, warm and comforting. In her mind's eye, she saw fleeting images, a human woman with kind eyes, an Altarian with scholarly features, her parents. "You are more than the sum of your parts, Lyra," her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Your dual heritage is not a weakness, but a strength." With renewed determination, Lyra pushed back against the Void Collective's assault. She began to understand that the key to controlling her power wasn't in subduing it, but in embracing it fully, both the human and Altarian aspects of her being. As the battle raged on, the station shuddered around them. Alarms blared, warning of critical system failures. Lyra realized that their conflict was tearing Zeta-12 apart. If she didn't end this soon, everyone on board would perish. Drawing upon reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, Lyra focused her energy into a singular purpose. She envisioned the station, its people, the very space around them, and willed it to be protected. A sphere of blue light expanded from her body, pushing back the darkness. The Void Collective leader staggered, its shadowy form flickering. "Impossible," it hissed. "You cannot." But Lyra didn't relent. The sphere continued to grow, encompassing the entire core chamber, then spreading throughout the station. As it passed, damaged systems repaired themselves, injured crew members felt their wounds heal, and the invading aliens found their technology failing. The leader of the Void Collective launched a final desperate attack, hurling a lance of pure darkness at Lyra's heart. But the energy shield she had created held firm, absorbing the attack and turning it into harmless light. With a final surge of power, Lyra pushed outward, her energy engulfing not just the station, but the disabled alien fleet beyond. In that moment, she saw everything with perfect clarity: the intricate web of life and technology, the delicate balance of the universe itself. The Void Collective ships vanished in a flash of light, vanished to some distant corner of space. Their leader, now looking diminished and almost pitiful, fell to its knees before Lyra. "How?" it asked, its mental voice now tinged with awe and fear. "How can you control it so completely?" Lyra looked down at her former adversary, feeling not triumph, but a profound sense of understanding. "Because I'm not trying to control it," she said softly. "I'm part of it, just as it's part of me. This power doesn't belong to humans, or Altarians, or even the precursors. It belongs to all of us, to the universe itself." With those words, the last of the dark energy dissipated from the Void Collective leader's form, revealing a being that looked almost fragile. It gazed up at Lyra with what could only be described as wonder. "Perhaps," it said, "we have been wrong all this time. Perhaps there is another way." Before Lyra could respond, the being vanished in a soft implosion of light, leaving behind only a small crystalline object, a token of surrender, or perhaps a key to future understanding. As the energy field Lyra had created slowly dissipated, she became aware of her surroundings once more. The central core of Zeta-12 hummed with renewed life, its systems functioning better than ever before. Through her connection to the station, She could sense the amazement and relief of the crew throughout. Exhausted but exhilarated, Lyra made her way back to the control room. As the doors slid open, she was met with a sight she never thought she'd see. The entire command crew, led by Chief Engineer Thorne, staring at her with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and not a small amount of fear. Thorne stepped forward, his gruff demeanor softened by what Lyra realized was respect. We owe you an apology, kid," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "We were wrong about you. All this time, we thought your hybrid nature made you weak, but it made you strong enough to save us all." Lyra felt tears welling up in her eyes, years of loneliness and rejection washing away in this moment of acceptance. But she also felt the weight of her newfound power and understanding settling on her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite her emotions. "But this is just the beginning. What happened here, what I've become, it's bigger than just our station. The universe is vaster and more complex than we ever imagined, and there's so much we need to learn." As if in response to her words, the small crystal left behind by the Void Collective leader began to glow in her hand. Within its facets, Lyra could see glimpses of distant worlds, ancient technologies, and cosmic wonders beyond imagination. She looked up at the crew, at the people who had once shunned her but now looked to her with hope and expectation. "We have a choice to make," she said. "We can stay here, try to return to our old lives, or we can embark on a journey to understand these powers, to explore the legacy of the precursors, and maybe, just maybe, help shape the future of our galaxy." The control room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Then, slowly, Thorne stepped forward. "I think I speak for all of us when I say, lead the way, Captain Lyra." A chorus of agreement rose from the crew. Lyra felt a surge of emotion, pride, excitement, and a touch of nervousness. She gazed out at the star-filled viewport, the crystal pulsing gently in her hand, guiding her towards humanity's next great adventure. "Well then," she said, a smile spreading across her face, "let's see what's out there." As Zeta-12 hummed to life around her, preparing for a journey into the unknown, Lyra realized that she had finally found her place in the universe. Not as a human, not as an Altarian, but as something beautifully, uniquely in between, a bridge between worlds, a harbinger of a new era of understanding and exploration. The story of the once ridiculed hybrid girl was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. In the days that followed, Zeta-12 buzzed with activity. The station, once a neglected outpost, now thrummed with renewed purpose. Crew members who had once avoided Lyra now sought her out, eager to learn about the strange powers she wielded and the cosmic secrets she had glimpsed. Lyra spent hours in deep meditation, exploring the vast well of knowledge that had been unlocked within her. The crystal left behind by the Void Collective leader proved to be a key, opening doors to understanding that she had never imagined possible. As she delved deeper into her newfound abilities, Lyra began to understand the true nature of the power she now wielded. It wasn't just raw energy, but a fundamental force of the universe itself, the power of creation and transformation that had shaped galaxies since the dawn of time. With this realization came a profound sense of responsibility. Lyra knew that she couldn't keep this knowledge to herself. It had to be shared, but carefully, wisely. The galaxy wasn't ready for such power to be unleashed all at once. One evening, as she sat cross-legged in her quarters, the crystal floating before her eyes, Lyra gasped as a flood of information surged through her mind. She saw star maps of uncharted regions, glimpsed technologies that defied her current understanding of physics, and felt the echoes of ancient civilizations long lost to time. A soft knock at her door broke her concentration. "Come in," she called, the crystal settling gently into her palm. Chief Engineer Thorne entered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted to the dim light. "How's it going, Captain?" he asked, the title still sounding strange when directed at her. Lyra smiled, standing to face him. "It's overwhelming," she admitted. "There's so much to learn, So much we never knew was out there. Thorn nodded, his expression thoughtful. The crew's almost ready. We've retrofitted the station with the best FTL drive we could cobble together based on some of those designs you shared. But he hesitated. Are you sure about this, Lyra? We're heading into completely uncharted territory. There's no going back. Lyra looked down at the crystal in her hand, then back up at Thorn. I'm sure, she said firmly. This is bigger than just us, Thorn. The things I've seen, the knowledge we've gained, it could change everything. And if we don't go, if we don't try to understand it, who knows what might happen? The Void Collective was just the beginning. Thorn's face broke into a rare smile. That's what I hoped you'd say. Well then, Captain, we await your orders. As Thorn left, Lyra turned to look out the viewport. The stars seemed to shine brighter now, calling to her. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her newfound senses. She could feel the pulse of distant worlds, the ebb and flow of cosmic energies. And somewhere out there, she sensed others, beings like her, awakening to their true potential. The next morning, Lyra stood in the control room, facing the assembled crew of Zeta-12. Faces that had once looked at her with scorn or indifference now gazed at her with respect and anticipation. Today, she began, her voice clear and strong. We embark on a journey unlike any in human history. We carry with us not just the hopes and dreams of our own people, but the legacy of civilizations long past. Our mission is to explore, to learn, and perhaps most importantly, to bridge the gaps between the many peoples of this vast universe. She held up the crystal, which pulsed with a soft light. This will be our guide, leading us to places of power and knowledge left behind by the precursors. But make no mistake, we will face challenges, dangers we can't even imagine. The Void Collective may be gone, but there are other forces out there, some who may see us as a threat. Lyra paused, looking each crew member in the eye. I won't lie to you. This journey will change us. It may change the very course of history, but I believe that together we can face whatever the universe throws at us. Are you with me? A resounding cheer filled the control room. Lyra felt a surge of emotion, pride mixed with a deep sense of responsibility. She turned to the main console, placing her hand on the crystal. It flared to life, interfacing with Zeta-12 systems. Plot a course, she commanded, the star map before her shifting to highlight their first destination. Let's see what's out there. With a deep, resonant hum, Zeta-12's new FTL drive engaged. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light, and then with a flash, they were gone, hurtling through space towards the unknown. As they traveled, Lyra felt a change coming over her. The powers within her were growing, evolving. She began to see patterns in the fabric of space-time, to understand the fundamental forces of the universe in ways she had never imagined. But with this growth came new challenges. Sometimes she would wake in the night, her body glowing with barely contained energy, strange visions flashing before her eyes. She knew that mastering these abilities would be a lifelong journey. As Zeta-12 ventured deeper into uncharted space, Lyra stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the infinite expanse before them. The once ridiculed hybrid girl had become a pioneer, a leader, a bridge between worlds. And as the station surged forward into the unknown, Lyra knew that their greatest adventures and challenges were yet to come. The universe, vast and mysterious, awaited their exploration, and Lyra, with her unique heritage and newfound powers, was ready to face whatever wonders and perils lay ahead. The journey of discovery had only just begun. Weeks turned into months as Zeta-12 journeyed deeper into uncharted space. They encountered wonders beyond imagination. Ancient space stations that dwarfed entire planets, nebulae that sang with cosmic harmonies, and artifacts of power that hinted at the true scope of the precursor civilization. But they also faced dangers, hostile alien races that saw them as invaders, natural phenomena that defied the laws of physics as they knew them, and always the lurking threat of the Void Collective's return. Through it all, Lyra led with a wisdom beyond her years, her unique perspective as a hybrid allowing her to bridge gaps and find solutions where others saw only conflict. But the strain of leadership, combined with her ever-growing powers, was taking its toll. One night, as Zeta-12 drifted in the shadow of a massive gas giant, Lyra tossed and turned in her quarters, locked in the grip of a vivid dream. In her mind's eye, she saw a great tree, its branches stretching out across the cosmos, each leaf a galaxy, each fruit a star. At the base of the tree stood two figures, one human, one Altarian. "Mom, Dad?" Lyra called out, her voice echoing in the vastness of space. The figures turned, and Lyra felt a rush of emotion as she saw her parents' faces clearly for the first time in years. They smiled at her, their eyes filled with pride and love. "My beautiful daughter," her mother said, her voice carried on stellar winds. "You've come so far. But your journey is far from over," her father added, his Altarian features shimmering with starlight. "The power you wield is greater than you know, and with it comes great responsibility." Lyra reached out to them, but they seemed to drift further away. "Wait," she cried. "I have so many questions. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." Her parents' voices began to fade, but their final words rang clear in Lyra's mind. "Remember who you are, Lyra. You are the bridge between worlds, the harmony of two songs. Embrace your true nature, and you will find the strength you seek." Lyra woke with a start, her body drenched in sweat, the room around her pulsing with energy. The crystal she had kept since their encounter with the Void Collective was floating above her bed, spinning rapidly and emitting a blinding light. As she reached out to touch it, the crystal shattered, its fragments swirling around her in a dazzling display. Lyra felt a surge of power unlike anything she had experienced before. It was as if every cell in her body was awakening, resonating with the very fabric of the universe. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Lyra rushed to the control room, her body still crackling with energy. As she entered, she found the crew in a state of panic. "Captain," Thorne called out, his face pale. "We've got a situation. Some kind of cosmic storm just appeared out of nowhere. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Lyra looked at the main view screen and gasped. A swirling vortex of energy, beautiful and terrifying, was bearing down on Zeta-12. Colors that had no name in any human or Altarian language danced across its surface. "It's not a storm," Lyra whispered, a sudden understanding dawning on her. "It's a test." Before anyone could question her, Lyra strode forward, placing her hands on the main console. As she did, her body began to glow with the same otherworldly light as the vortex outside. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Thorne asked, his voice tinged with fear and awe. "What I was born to do," she replied, her voice resonating with power. "I'm going to save us all." With that, Lyra closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She could feel the energy of the vortex, wild and chaotic, but also familiar. It was the same power that flowed through her, the legacy of the precursors, but uncontrolled and raw. Drawing upon everything she had learned, every trial she had faced, Lyra began to weave the energy. In her mind's eye, she saw the structure of the universe itself, a grand tapestry of space and time, matter and energy. And she, with her dual nature, was uniquely positioned to mend the tear that the vortex represented. As the crew watched in amazement, Lyra's body began to change. Her skin shimmered with starlight, her hair flowing as if underwater, streaked with colors that shifted and changed with each passing moment. When she opened her eyes, they were galaxies unto themselves, deep and infinite. Outside, the vortex began to respond to Lyra's influence. The chaotic swirls of energy started to align, forming intricate patterns that mirrored the movements of Lyra's hands. It was as if she was conducting a cosmic symphony, bringing harmony to the chaos. But the strain was immense. Lyra felt as if she was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Her very essence stretched to its limits. Sweat beaded on her brow as she fought to maintain control. "Hold on, Lyra," Thorn shouted, seeing her struggle. "You can do this." His words were echoed by the rest of the crew, their voices rising in a chorus of support. And in that moment, Lyra felt something shift within her. The last barriers between her human and Altarian halves fell away, and she embraced her true nature fully for the first time. With a cry that shook the very foundations of reality, Lyra unleashed her full potential. A wave of energy burst from her body, engulfing Zeta-12 and spreading out to meet the vortex. Where the two forces met, there was a blinding flash of light. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The crew of Zeta-12 held their breath, unsure of what would happen next. Then, slowly, the light faded, revealing a sight that none of them would ever forget. The vortex was gone, and in its place was a shimmering portal, a window to another part of the universe. Through it, they could see new stars, new worlds, a realm of possibilities that had been hidden from them before. Lyra stood at the center of the control room, transformed. Her body seemed to flicker between human and Altarian forms, settling finally on a perfect blend of both. She radiated an aura of power and serenity that filled everyone present with a sense of awe. "Captain," Thorn ventured, breaking the silence. "Are you okay?" Lyra turned to face her crew, a smile of pure joy spreading across her face. "I'm more than okay, Thorn. I'm awake, truly awake, for the first time in my life." She gestured towards the portal. "This is why we're here. This is what the precursors were trying to achieve. A way to bridge the gaps between all corners of the universe, to bring unity to the cosmos." The crew stared in wonder at the portal and at their transformed captain. Questions bubbled up, a mix of excitement and trepidation. What does this mean for us? Where does that portal lead? Are you still, you, Captain? Lyra raised her hands, calming the excited chatter. "I'm still me," she assured them. "Just more. I can see things now, understand things in a way I never could before. And what I see is a universe full of wonders and possibilities, waiting for us to explore it." She turned back to the portal, her expression becoming serious. "But with this discovery comes great responsibility. We have the power to reshape the very fabric of space and time. We must use it wisely, for the benefit of all beings, not just ourselves." Thorn stepped forward, standing at Lyra's side. "Whatever you decide, Captain, we're with you. You've led us this far, and we trust you to lead us forward." Lyra felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She looked at each member of her crew, seeing not just their physical forms, but the intricate patterns of energy that made up their very beings. They were all connected, part of the grand cosmic dance. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "We've come so far together, but our journey is just beginning. The universe is calling to us, offering us a chance to be part of something greater than ourselves. Are you ready to answer that call?" The response was unanimous. Cheers filled the control room, a resounding affirmation of their trust in Lyra and their commitment to this new path. With a gesture, Lyra interfaced directly with Zeta-12 systems, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire station. She could feel every circuit, every conduit, every molecule that made up their home. "Then let's make history," she said, her voice resonating through the station speakers. "Zeta-12, prepare for transdimensional jump." As the crew rushed to their stations, Lyra reached out with her mind, gently guiding the station towards the shimmering portal. She could feel the fabric of space-time bending around them, the laws of physics stretching to accommodate their passage. With a flash of light and a sensation that defied description, Zeta-12 passed through the portal. When the disorientation faded, they found themselves in a part of the universe that no human or Altarian had ever seen before. New constellations painted the sky, and in the distance, they could see the spiraling arms of a galaxy unlike any in their records. But more than that, they could feel the potential that surrounded them, the chance to explore, to learn, to grow. Lyra stood at the heart of it all, a living bridge between worlds, species, and dimensions. She knew that the path ahead would be challenging, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But she also knew that with her crew by her side, and the power of the cosmos flowing through her, there was nothing they couldn't face. As Zeta-12 began its journey into this new frontier, Lyra felt a sense of purpose and belonging that she had searched for all her life. She was no longer the outcast, the hybrid girl who didn't fit in anywhere. She was exactly who and what she was meant to be: a pioneer, a leader, a cosmic force for unity and understanding. The universe, in all its infinite complexity, stretched out before them. And Lyra, once ridiculed and rejected, now stood at the forefront of the greatest adventure in the history of all species. The awakening was complete, and the true journey was just beginning. As Zeta-12 drifted through the uncharted reaches of this new galaxy, the crew found themselves in a constant state of awe. Every day brought new discoveries, each more incredible than the last. Lyra, now fully embracing her role as both captain and cosmic conduit, led them with a mixture of wisdom and wonder. One particular morning, as the station orbited a planet with rings that shimmered like liquid rainbows, Lyra called the senior staff to the newly christened Harmony Chamber, a room she had created at the heart of the station, where the energies of the cosmos seemed to converge. As the team assembled, they couldn't help but marvel at their surroundings. The chamber's walls seemed to shift and flow, displaying real-time images of distant stars and nebulae. At the center stood Lyra, her form still flickering between human and Altarian, a living embodiment of the unity they sought to achieve. "Friends," Lyra began, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance, "we've traveled further than any of our peoples ever dreamed possible, but our journey is far from over. I've sensed something, a call from the depths of space. I believe it's time for us to make first contact with the native species of this galaxy." A murmur of excitement and apprehension rippled through the group. Thorn, ever the voice of caution, spoke up. "Captain, are you sure we're ready for that? We don't know anything about the civilizations here. They could be hostile." Lyra smiled, a gesture that somehow conveyed both human warmth and Altarian serenity. "Your concern is valid, Thorn. But remember, we're not just explorers anymore. We're ambassadors of unity. The power we wield, the knowledge we've gained, it's not meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be shared." She waved her hand, and the images on the walls coalesced into a single point of light. "There," she said, pointing to a blue-green planet orbiting a binary star system. "That's where we need to go. I can sense a civilization there, one that's on the brink of a great leap forward. They're reaching for the stars, just as we once did. We can help guide them, show them a path of harmony rather than conflict." Dr. Ilara, the chief medical officer, leaned forward with interest. "What can you tell us about them, Captain? Physiologically, culturally?" Lyra closed her eyes, reaching out with her expanded senses. "They're fascinating. Physically, imagine a blend of cephalopod and mammal. Their society is based on collective consciousness, but they value individual growth. They're curious, inventive, and stand at a crossroads. Their next steps will determine whether they embrace unity or fall into division." The senior staff exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and nervousness evident on their faces. This was what they had signed up for, but the reality of it was both thrilling and daunting. "How do you propose we approach them, Captain?" asked Commander Zhen, the head of security. "We can't exactly park Zeta-12 in orbit and knock on their door." Lyra's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Actually, Commander, that's exactly what we're going to do, but not in the way you might think." She held out her hands, and between them, a small sphere of energy began to form. As the crew watched in amazement, the sphere expanded, taking on the shape of a sleek spacecraft. "I call it the Harmony. Lyra explained. It's a synthesis of our technology and the cosmic energy we've learned to harness. It will allow us to approach peacefully, and its systems are specifically designed for first contact scenarios. The holographic ship rotated slowly, showcasing its elegant design. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a perfect blend of organic curves and advanced technology. I'll lead a small team to the surface, Lyra continued. Thorn, Dr. Ilara, Commander Zhen, I want you with me. The rest of you will monitor from Zeta 12, ready to provide support if needed. As the meeting adjourned and preparations began, Lyra felt a familiar presence at her side. It was Thorn, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. You've come a long way from that shy technician I used to berate, he said softly. I don't think I ever properly apologized for how I treated you back then. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, and Thorn felt a wave of warmth and understanding flow through him. The past is behind us, old friend. What matters is the future we're building together. The next few days were a flurry of activity as the crew prepared for their first official first contact mission. The Harmony was brought to life, its systems a marvel of engineering and cosmic energy manipulation. Lyra spent hours in deep meditation, attuning herself to the unique frequency of the alien world they were about to visit. Finally, the day arrived. As the Harmony detached from Zeta 12 and glided towards the blue-green planet, Lyra felt a sense of destiny. This moment, she realized, was what her entire life had been leading up to. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere with barely a ripple, its advanced shielding rendering it nearly invisible to the native population's detection systems. As they descended towards a vast, shimmering city that seemed to be half submerged in a global ocean, Lyra reached out with her mind, sending a gentle pulse of greeting. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The entire city seemed to light up, patterns of bioluminescence rippling across buildings and inhabitants alike. Lyra guided the Harmony to a central plaza, where a group of the planet's leaders had already gathered. As the ship's doors opened and Lyra stepped out, followed by her team, there was a moment of profound silence. The aliens, who called themselves the Lumina, regarded the newcomers with a mixture of awe and curiosity. Their bodies pulsed with patterns of light, a form of communication more nuanced than any verbal language. Lyra took a deep breath and then, to the amazement of her crew, began to glow in response. Patterns of light danced across her skin, mimicking the luminous bioluminescent language. Greetings, she projected, both verbally and through the light patterns. We come in peace, as friends and fellow travelers in the cosmic dance. The leader of the Lumina, a being of swirling blues and greens, moved forward. Its thoughts touched Lyra's mind, a symphony of emotions and ideas. Welcome, star-touched ones, the leader communicated. Your coming was foretold in our oldest legends. We have long awaited this day. What followed was an exchange unlike any in the history of first contact scenarios. Lyra, serving as a living universal translator, bridged the gap between the luminous collective consciousness and her crew's individual minds. Ideas flowed freely, cultural information was exchanged, and the foundations of a profound alliance were laid. The Lumina shared their struggles, the challenges of a warming ocean, dwindling resources, and the temptation to use their collective consciousness as a tool of conformity rather than unity. In turn, Lyra and her team offered insights from their own civilization's histories, as well as the cosmic wisdom they had gained on their journey. As the diplomatic exchange stretched into hours, then days, both sides found themselves transformed. The Lumina, inspired by the visitors from beyond the stars, recommitted themselves to a path of sustainable growth and peaceful exploration. The crew of Zeta 12, in turn, gained new perspectives on consciousness, community, and the interconnectedness of all things. On the final day of their visit, as Lyra prepared to depart, the Lumina leader presented her with a gift, a crystal that pulsed with the combined life energy of their entire species. This is our song crystal, the leader explained. It contains the essence of our civilization, We entrust it to you, Star Bridge, as a symbol of our friendship and our commitment to the path of unity you have shown us." Lyra accepted the crystal with deep reverence. As she held it, she felt the hopes, dreams, and collective wisdom of an entire civilization flow through her. It was a profound reminder of the responsibility she and her crew now carried. As the harmony lifted off, watched by millions of awestruck lumina, Lyra felt a sense of completion. This, she realized, was just the first step on a much longer journey. There were countless civilizations out there, each with its own unique challenges and gifts. Zeta 12 and its crew were uniquely positioned to serve as guides, mediators, and catalysts for a new age of cosmic cooperation. Back aboard Zeta 12, as the senior staff gathered to debrief, there was a palpable sense of accomplishment and excitement. "I think it's safe to say that was a success," Thorne said, a rare smile on his face. "But Captain, where do we go from here? The galaxy's a big place, and we're just one station." Lyra looked around at her crew, no, her family, and felt a surge of pride and affection. "We've been given a great gift," she said, holding up the luminous song crystal. "Not just this, but the power and knowledge to make a real difference. I propose we use Zeta 12 as a mobile base of operations. We'll travel from system to system, making contact, offering aid where we can, and learning always." She paused, her gaze distant as she peered into potential futures. "But more than that, I think it's time we started sharing what we've learned. We'll establish academies, both here on Zeta 12 and on willing planets. We'll teach the principles of cosmic harmony, of unity and diversity. We'll train a new generation of ambassadors, scientists, and explorers who can carry this mission forward." The crew nodded in agreement, energized by the vision Lyra was laying out. "It won't be easy," Lyra continued. "We'll face challenges we can't even imagine yet. There will be those who fear us, who resist the changes we represent. But I believe in this crew, in the path we've chosen. Together, there's nothing we can't accomplish." As the meeting adjourned and the crew dispersed to their duties, Lyra remained in the harmony chamber. She stood at the center, the song crystal in one hand, the remnants of the precursor artifact in the other. As she brought them together, a spark of energy passed between them, and Lyra gasped as a vision filled her mind. She saw Zeta 12 as it could be, not just a station, but a beacon of hope and unity, traveling between stars and galaxies. She saw academies flourishing on 100 worlds, young minds of countless species learning to touch the cosmic energy that bound all things. She saw conflicts resolved, planets healed, and the beginnings of a true galactic community. But beyond that, in the far reaches of her vision, she saw other lights, other beings like herself, awakening to their true potential. They were scattered across the universe, but they were there, waiting to be found, waiting to join in the grand cosmic dance. Lyra opened her eyes, a tear of joy sliding down her cheek. The journey ahead was vast, filled with both wonders and challenges beyond imagining. But she was ready. They were all ready. "Zeta 12, she called out, her voice resonating through the station. "Chart a course for the next star system. Our journey is just beginning." As the station hummed to life around her, preparing to leap once more into the unknown, Lyra felt a profound sense of peace and purpose. The universe, in all its infinite complexity, stretched out before them, and she, once an outcast, now stood at the forefront of the greatest adventure in the history of all species. The hybrid girl who had been laughed at and scorned had found her true power, her true purpose. And in doing so, she had opened the door to a future brighter than any could have imagined. The journey of unity, of discovery, of cosmic harmony, had only just begun. And Lyra, together with her crew and all those they would meet along the way, was ready to write the next chapter in the grand story of the universe.